Hey guys, welcome back. As usual, every time I do one of these wrap-ups, you already know what I'm gonna say, which is the fact that I cannot believe that we're already heading into a new month. This summer has just flown by. I don't know if it's because I am anticipating something big and life-changing coming up, or it's just the fact that summer tends to go by super fast because of all the holidays, but regardless, June went by in the blink of an eye. So here we are, as you can tell from the title of this video. I'm going to be talking all about the books that I read in June. Okay, so let's talk stats really quickly. For the month of June, I ended up reading 10 books, and as you will be able to see, there was one series in particular that I went super hard and heavy on, and to be honest, I'm still currently reading that series, and I'm totally fine with it, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. Now, in terms of how I will be talking about the books that I read, I got feedback from you all on my last wrap-up, and it seems like the majority of you are okay with my current rambly style, which bless all of you who commented and left feedback. I found it super helpful, and I might still kind of play around with it a little bit based on you all's suggestions, but for today's video, I'm just going to go in the order of the books that I read and give you all a recap, blah, 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 basically the same way that I do it. So as usual, let me know if you have read any of these, and if so, what you thought about them. So let's go ahead and start. First, let's turn off my creepy speaker that decided to turn on. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive into the book. So the first book that I read, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened in the beginning of June because it feels like I just read this book, but it is called Stalker by Jessa Kane. And if you have been around my channel for a while, you'll know that I have a love-hate relationship with Jessa Kane's books. If you're not familiar with her, she writes erotic novellas, and they tend to have a lot of shock value, I guess, at least for some audiences. However, for this one, I was actually really intrigued with the premise. I wanted something short, something totally opposite of a cozy mystery, and so I picked this one up. And so in a nutshell, what you have is a man who is recently released from the military. I think he's like a SEAL veteran, and he returns home only to realize that his father has not recently, but anyway, his father has remarried, and he basically has a new stepsister who he is instantly attracted to. Now, that premise to me isn't necessarily new or even shocking because we've all seen Clueless. However, that paired with the fact that there is a age gap, I guess it is what makes it a little bit taboo, or at least the author tries to make it come across as taboo with some of the reactions from other characters in the story. Now, gotta be honest, I didn't love this one. I really like the premise, and again, that's why I picked it up, but I do think that it fell a little flat. I found it a little bit boring, which is so devastating to say because, you know, it's a novella. You expect it to be kind of like a quick hit. You jump in to whatever you're jumping into and you're taken along for the ride, and then the story wraps up. But in this case, it just didn't quite get there for me, which again is super unfortunate, but I gotta be honest, this is not the end of me trying Jessa Kane's books, so hopefully the next one that I pick up from her will pique my interest a little bit more. Okay, so the next book that I read is actually part of a series which I will talk about the entire batch at the end. So let's move on to the book that I read after that, which was Jill Shalvis's Love for Beginners, and this is book 7 in her Wildstone series. Off bat, oh my goodness, I love this book so much. You all know how much I love Jill Shalvis, and this Wildstone series is really just turning out to be such a heavy-hitting series. I mean, not like heavy hitting as in sob stories, but it does have an emotional tie, but it's some of Jill's best work. And I've got other favorite series of hers, but again, this one is just, it kind of crept up on me and I'm really starting to enjoy it. But anyway, I have to tell you about the premise because, just thinking about this book all over again makes me want to reread it. So basically what we have, what is her name? Oh my goodness, I don't remember her name, so I'm just gonna call her the heroine. So basically, what we have is our main heroine who is recently released from physical therapy because she has been in a coma for quite a while. And so when she wakes back up, she's basically told she's never gonna walk again, run again, and she doesn't want her life to be over. So she basically busts her ass at physical therapy to get some semblance of the life that she used to have. And so the physical therapist who helps her is essentially the hero of the story. The two of them have formed this relationship that is professional, but at the same time it goes a little bit beyond that because she clearly trusts him to push her so that she can start to learn to walk and everything. And so seeing the two of them forge a relationship outside of the physical therapy center was just such a joy to watch. However, take all of that and push it to the side because the real gem of this story are the side characters. And by side characters, I mean two in particular. One, her dog. It's this huge Saint Bernard. His name is Hog. He is her physical therapy dog or emotional therapy dog. Even though she says that she's technically his emotional therapy human. Oh my God. Oh, the scenes with Hog is just so funny because you imagine this big, overbearing, cute, fluffy dog being scared of a chihuahua or lightning, and it's just so endearing. And then you have the second side character, which is the hero's grandfather, who is such a hoot. He's got, I want to say he might have early onset Alzheimer's, but anyway, he is super sassy grandpa. He's smart as a whip when he's lucid, and he tells it like it is, and I love me some old folks who do that. And so a lot of the times you get his wisdom, but in a very brash way because he really just wants his grandson to get his shit together so that he too can end up happy. And so to me, honestly, it was the side characters that made this story. It does at some point center around like a doggy daycare center, which soft spot in my heart. But if you are a fan of romantic comedies or romance that pulls on heartstrings or even romances that feature animals, 100% check this book out. Okay, so coincidentally, I was on a Jill Shalvis kick after finishing that last book because I enjoyed it so much, and so that's why afterward I picked up Lucky in Love, which is number 4 in the Lucky Harbor series. Now, this series is one of my favorite Jill Shalvis series, at least that I remembered. However, I had kind of skipped around in the series and I didn't read it in order, obviously, and so when I realized number 4 was unread, I went ahead and scooped it up. Now, you know, it fell a little flat after coming upon the heels of Love for Beginners, which is so devastating to say, but you know, it is what it is. So it's still a solid book, and I still stand by the Lucky Harbor series. Again, it's one of my favorites. However, you know, putting it up against the book that I just read, it came out on the bottom, unfortunately. But anyway, in this one, we basically have the traditional small town where everybody knows each other. And our heroine, her name is Mallory. She is essentially the town good girl. She is a nurse working in the town, but between her family and just the rest of the small town knowing her, she's always been known as reliable, dependable, sweet, caring, can do no wrong, goody two-shoes kind of woman. And in rolls this guy, of course that's always how it turns out, but in rolls this guy who is basically just camping out there. Well, he's not literally camping, but he's basically just living there for a short while he tries to recuperate, because coincidentally he is an army veteran, or he was in the military and he got injured in the line of duty, and so he's trying to basically take it easy for a couple of months and regroup. And so he's a super mysterious guy to everybody in town. They don't know what he does. He keeps to himself. And so him and Mallory end up kind of meeting each other one night and having intense chemistry. And so for once in her life, she's like, you know what, I'm going to do something bad. I'm going to hook up with Mr. Wrong, in this case, Mr. Mysterious, and it'll be what it'll be. And so, you know, the reason that this story kind of bugged me a little is because the small town felt a little bit too involved to where it was almost borderline obnoxious for me. And they kept driving home the fact that she was supposed to be this good girl, and they kept her stuck in this box. And at the end, I will say she did come out of her shell and stand up for herself. I think for me though, by then it was just a little bit too late, because I was just kind of fed up with the town in general, and I'm like, screw them, girl. You don't even need to dignify any of their any of their feedback with a response. But anyway, the chemistry between the two characters was definitely scorching. I will give Miss Shalvis that. And the banter between them as well. She definitely does romantic comedy banter very well. However, for the reasons that I previously mentioned, it did not meet my expectations as much as I was hoping, but that's totally okay. Still love me some Jill Shalvis. And if you have not read this series, like I said, you can pick up wherever you want. So my suggestion would be maybe read the first book. Again, you don't have to, but then from there, kind of read the descriptions of the rest of the books in the series to see which one better suits you and kind of dive in from there. Okay, so the next book that I read was Till Death Do Us Tart, which is number 8 in the Bake Shop Mystery series, and I have been loving this series lately. I'm pretty sure over the last few months I have been reading 1 to 2 books from the series, which I don't mind whatsoever, and I especially love the plotline of this one. I'll put a spoiler really quick in case you find that this is spoilery, but basically the premise revolves around Jules' mom and the professor getting married, which I thought was just so sweet. And so the kind of main thing happening is everybody preparing for this wedding. And so the conflict, however, actually deals with Lance, which you all know from, I forget which book it was, but there was another book, it might have been the previous one, but Lance is essentially kind of on the hook for a murder that he didn't actually commit. And so to see him come back around and play another integral role in the story, I thought was really enjoyable, because I really come to enjoy his character, especially when he drops the facade. But in this one, again, I'll put a little spoiler. In this one, his father unfortunately dies, but Lance thinks that his father was murdered. So he begs Juliet to help him get to the bottom of it, because it just doesn't sit right with him. I mean, it wouldn't sit right with anybody, let's be honest. So basically you have Jules running around trying to help Lance out, and then also trying to help plan this wedding. Oh, and then on top of that, Carlos comes to town with his son, and so she finally gets to meet Carlos's son, and it was just a lot going on in this book. Not too much to where you can't keep up, but just so many things to where you keep reading because you really want to know what happens with every single one of these plot lines. So I'm trying to look at my rating. I rated it high at 4 stars, but I love this one. Now, one of the reasons that I loved it, again, is because of Lance, seeing him kind of drop his facade. I always really enjoy that. And I've actually really started to become intrigued with Carlos. If you're familiar with the series, you'll know that it's this on again, off again, the whole relationship, whatever. I typically don't enjoy the back and forth of relationships, but with this one, I'm really intrigued to know how it'll all pan out, and it ends on kind of a cliffhanger. So obviously I'm going to have to read the next book because I want to know what happens with Carlos. I mean, yeah, the conflict too, but tell me what's going to happen with Carlos. Okay, so let's kind of wrap up talking about the last 5 books that I read. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I am just going to put them all in one batch because it was all from the same series. You probably guessed it by now, or maybe not. There were probably 2 guesses. 1, it would be the Donna Andrews Meg Langslow series, and 2, it would be the JD Robb In Death series. So I'm going to give you like 3 seconds to say really quickly which one you think it was. Okay, so if you guessed the In Death series, you were right. The Donna Andrews series, unfortunately, I try to spread those out a little bit more. I can't binge them too much. But anyway, yes, I read 5 of the JD Robb's In Death series. I have been on a huge kick. I was in the readathon last year, and I've been kind of reading or trying to average out one book a month, but I had stopped for a while just because I wanted to give myself a break, and I have come back with a vengeance. So let me just read you really quickly the names of the books that I read. Basically, it was number 22 through 26. So we've got Memory in Death, then we have Born in Death, then Innocent in Death, then Creation in Death, and then finally Strangers in Death. All of them love. All of them loved. Now, some of them, I'm always torn with this series because I don't want to necessarily give away the plot line for every single story, especially since a lot of it has to do with overarching plot lines. However, there are a couple that stood out. I just want to find them for you really quickly. Excuse me. So the one that stood out to me the most that I gave 5 stars to is Innocent in Death. And I will talk about that one just really quickly. The reason that I gave it 5 stars is because the overall plot line was super intriguing. And that is to say that in this one, Rourke's ex-lover comes back into town. Now, if you're familiar with the series, or maybe you're not, but our main heroine, her name is Eve, and she's married to this guy named Rourke. Their relationship lasts throughout the entire series, and it's one of the best relationships that I've ever read. I adore it so much. And so to have someone from Rourke's past come into the picture, or come back into the picture, and for it to get under Eve's skin, you know, has to be a huge deal, because Eve doesn't get jealous. Rourke has had some people from his past. Eve has had some people from his past, but this particular woman, there was just something about her, and lo and behold, they had to work some shit out, and it was just so interesting. I really enjoy the stories where Eve is vulnerable or shows her vulnerability, because otherwise she's always this kind of tough badass cop, which is also good, but to see a crack in that facade and how she handles that, it's always a treat. And that's exactly what happens in this one. So again, that one was called Innocent in Death. That was number 24. And as for the rest of them, again, I really enjoyed them. I'm pretty sure I rated the rest of them 4 stars. Maybe there was one 3-star, and that wasn't even like a bad 3-star. It was more just so like, okay, it just wasn't as good as the other books in the series. So much has happened in between books 24 and 26. Again, you can skip this part if you don't want like plot line or overarching plotline spoilers, but we have Mavis giving birth finally, which is so crazy to think about. We have actually, I don't want to tell you this one because it's part of the story that I'm currently reading. So stay tuned for next month's wrap up when I tell you like another big tidbit of news. But yeah, overall, it's just such a good series. One that I would actually reread if I'm being honest. It's that good. So anyway, hopefully you didn't mind me kind of like batching those all together. I feel like it would have been a waste of time to go through the storylines for every single one. But just know, if you are interested in the In Death series and you haven't picked it up, I highly recommend it. I was actually planning to do a video about it, but I'm trying to figure out if I am worthy of doing it, even though I'm only halfway through the series, as opposed to having read all 50 books. At this point, I'm beyond halfway through. Nope. Yep, I'm beyond halfway through, which is crazy to think about. So anyway, yeah, so there you have it, the 10 books that I read, even though I gave you really the premise for only 6 of them. But as I mentioned, let me know in the comments if you have read any of these, and if so, what you thought. I am dying to talk to somebody more specifically about the Love for Beginners book by Shalvis, and then any of the In Death series books, because oh, I just love it so much. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Happy reading, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!